So how do we move back, do you think, from moments of kind of getting off course to the truth? How do we move back to the truth? Because we get off course a lot, don't we? Okay. How do we move back to the truth? How do you think we would move back to the truth? Well, meditation. So, but we would have to know then to be exercising that awareness in our minds to get us back to knowing that that's going to help us. And what does meditation really mean? A moment of stillness? Yeah. Yeah, maybe a moment of refocus. Yeah, you said it kind of, that's a good point, Mark. Refocusing. Because we get out of whack, don't we? I mean, we're moving along here, we start our day, and then so many things, don't they seem to pull on you? Your boss yells at you. You have a car accident. Somebody dies. Somebody's sick. The most unexpected things happen. And we seem to be pulled in so many different directions. And don't you think that that was kind of like the life of Jesus? Get up. I'm sure he had no idea what he was going to get that day, but he knew he had 12 weird guys, or, you know, who were always pulling him in multiple directions, you know, strange fellows, you know, always complaining and confused and wanting and so many different directions, you know, and he was probably pulled in so many different directions. Why do we look at him as an example of clarity? Anybody have any idea? He stayed on course, didn't he? In a classroom, if you don't stay on course, what happens to your classroom? It goes chaos. There's a good example. Every teacher knows you cannot show fear. You know? No matter what's going on, you gotta be there and keep everything going, no matter what. Some of the greatest teachers, you probably reminisce back in your life, some of the greatest teachers I ever had showed such focus and clarity in the midst of chaos. I remember when Kennedy was shot. I was in the 2nd grade. I remember, some of those terrible things that happened when I was in school. And the teachers that, I remember the teachers that said, let's take a moment of silence. You know, let's bring our attention into something constructive instead of running off into destructive paths. Let's keep our focus. You know, meditate without saying the word. We don't say the word. We can bring ourselves back to a center, you know, remembering what our purpose is. And that's hard to do in this world. But it's not so hard to do if we keep practicing it. If you go back in your life, you've had a lot of strong people who have done that for you. Mothers and fathers. Parents are pretty darn good when you're going through a lot of chaos and they keep you together. Or somebody else in your life who showed you that kind of consistent refocusing that's helped you to focus. You know, that's what life is really about. Now, what this is telling us is let's know that God, even if you don't have somebody in your awareness right now, you have the mighty power of the universe within you now. You need to uncover that to bring you back to focus. Because that focus is what stops the confusion, the unsurety, and the conflicted actions. It lines you up straight. You know, like remember the little guys you used to make had the little filings and the little face of the person, and you'd bring your magnet up and you'd make eyebrows and mustaches and beards for them. And, you know, when you brought that little magnet down on those little, what were they called? Metal filings. Wasn't it amazing how they just stood up and you could bring those things over and drop them right where you wanted. You had such command with that little magnet to bring them exactly where you wanted them. They stood up immediately. Well, what this is saying is the creator of all has that kind of power to transform our lives. Those little metal shavings, they know right where to go and where to be moved to and where to be dropped. And the same thing is true for us. You know, we need to keep that focus. And that's why it says, Let us be determined to remember what we want today, that we may unify our thoughts and actions meaningfully and achieve only what God would have us do this day. We want His purpose, not ours. Because frankly, we are always so unsure of ourselves, aren't we? But one thing we can be positive about is the power of God's love. We may not know, but He does. And so you may say, I don't know how God could fix this. Well, that's darn good. I'm glad you don't. Because He has a much better perspective on this than you do. Allow Him into your mind. What you need to do is let forgiveness lead the way. Let us not forget today that we have no will but God's, but yours, Father. And thus our purpose is yours as well, if we would reach the peace that you will for us. If we want that peace, then we must know, turn to Him and say, we are willing to do the steps that lead to you. See only extensions of love and calls for love. Act in those ways as guided by the Holy Spirit. This is what we want. This is what we want to experience.